The structure motorized pergola system is...
That ain't what I want to do. That ain't what I wanted to do. All right, go back. I don't want to do this. All right, here we go. Come on, come on, come on, come on. All right, here we go. We're good. So I got 8 minutes. Same thing every day. Rush, rush, rush. Idiot. Wasn't the smartest move in the world. All right, Sports for Real with Coach Hall. Rush, 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 as always. But I'm gonna make it. All this talk about the NFL season and all the cuts and everything has brought us up to this point, to the games that really matter. And it's not just the NFL where the games matter. They've been playing high school football for the last couple of weeks. They matter. NFL is coming up next week, but this week, college football officially kicks off. Yeah, I know they had the game over in Ireland the other day, but a lot of people missed that. A lot of people not interested in that. They playing overseas somewhere. But all the major teams, all the major conferences, everybody, unless you got to buy that first week, you're going to be teeing it up this weekend. Tonight, I think you got Boise State playing South Florida. I think South Florida, I know South Florida is one of the teams, but they're just the first. And from that point forward, we're going to go full bore all the way into February with football. And I've been waiting on this because everybody's talking about the NBA and baseball and all that. Forget that, man. The only thing that matters truly in sports in America is football. Basketball is just something to do until football comes back around. Now that's over with, baseballs and heated races, we don't care about that, man. It's time for some football. So my question to you, who is your horse, man? Who you think is going to make it to the national championship? Will it be Ohio State? I don't know what I just did. Start a poll. I don't know what I did. I can't get it right today, so I won't worry about it. Let me stop before I mess up. All right, let me go back with that. I didn't know I could do that either. Hold on, I don't know if you can see this poll thing in the middle of the screen. I don't really want that. Let me see if I can get rid of it. Okay. You changed the format on me. Well, Ohio State. Stay on top. All right, let's see if that works. Okay, fine. I still got this thing in the middle of the screen. Hopefully that doesn't, I don't know what's going on. Drag here to end the poll. All right, forget that. But anyway, who is your team, man? I mean, shout out in the chat who you think is going to win this national championship. You know, this is a great time for people who like to bet and speculate. If you put down a few dollars and you got a team that you bet on that happens to win the championship or make it to the championship, you can make an awful lot of money. Notre Dame made a whole lot of people some money last year just because they made it to the championship. And if you got an idea about who might win the championship, and just a casual bettor, put down $2 or $3 on it, man, and it might turn into something major by the end of the year. So I've known people who've done that. I always thought that I would do something like that, like bet on the Super Bowl winner. But you know, with all this electronic stuff, we didn't have all that years ago when I used to have those thoughts. But now that I'm thinking about it, I'm going to see if I can put down a couple of dollars on who I think is going to win this whole thing in college and the pros and every other little sideline thing that I can come up with. But it's a fun time. But as far as football itself, everybody's still talking about the SEC. SEC is still hot because they felt like they should have got more teams into the playoffs last year. But I still don't understand how they feel like they can, how they should have over half the teams in the playoffs. It don't make a whole lot of sense. This is not the SEC championship all over again. You play that out in the regular season, and if you don't do well enough, or you feel like you played the toughest competition in the league, well, if I didn't play the toughest competition in the league and I lost most of my games, hell, does that mean I'm playing all the best teams? No, I just didn't win. But it doesn't matter where the best team is. It could be in the SEC, they can be in the Big 12, hell, they can be on Mars. If they're the best team, they can play the best teams anywhere and come out on top. SEC has this idea about, since their conference is so tough, and there's no doubt that it is a tough conference, but since the conference is so tough, that they have a God-given right that they should be the dominant factor in these playoffs. And if one conference is going to dominate everything, then you don't have a national tournament. All you have is a national domination by one particular sect. And that is not the way it's supposed to be. So as much as people don't like the 12 teams, this is what we have now. They didn't like the BCS. You didn't like the old bowl system. There's always going to be a whole bunch of people that don't like. But in reality, I think if you're going to do this, you need to have 16 teams. Forget that bye, and then let's go play. Make that number 1 seed, play a true 16 seed, and go from there. Why do I say that? Well, the NCAA basketball tournament, they tell us all year, this team is on the bubble. They got this many quality wins. That team's got that many quality wins. And if they lose one more game or one of their opponents lose something that weakens their overall score, then they're not going to make the tournament. But when the tournament comes out, that same team that they've been talking about being on the bubble, he's now seeded 9th or 10th, or at worst 12th. Well, if you're truly on the bubble, you need to be a number 16 seed. What they're doing is taking or giving favor to the best teams to give them an easier path into later rounds, while at the same time bragging about the fact that you don't have, and this is before the number 1 seed got knocked off by a 16 seed, bragging about how this has never happened. Well, the reason why you don't have that many number 1 seeds losing, and there's been a lot more 2s than there's been 1s, you don't have these really top teams losing because they don't face the biggest threat. You plan to get some teams that you don't want in the tournament in the first place, so you seed them number 16 to get them out of the way. But those same teams that you say are on the bubble, 9, 10, 11, 12 seeds, they need to be seeded 16 and send them over there to play that number 1 and put some pressure on them right out of the gate. If they're truly number 1, it won't be a problem, right? The end result would be a better tournament. And I think the same thing would be the case if you take 16 in football and then put them all properly seated where they go. Now, if you're going to take 16 teams with these super conferences now, I think the SEC is warranted at least 3, 4 at the most. Same thing with the Big 10. But to say that you should get 3 times the more teams than, say, the Big 12 just because you're the SEC, I don't give a damn about that. Because everybody in the SEC, just because you played a close competition against your rival, I might add, doesn't mean that you're one of the better teams in the nation. Now, it's not just picking on the SEC. I got the same problem with the Big 10 because hadn't been too long, maybe 15 years ago, Ohio State was 1 and 2 with Michigan, and I think Michigan lost, and they get on there talking about it was going to be a rematch for the national championship just because they had a close game. Okay, you had a close game with your rival, but that doesn't mean that you're now the 2 best teams in the nation just because you had a close game with your rival. That doesn't make sense to me. So all those old ways of thinking are all put to the test now with these playoffs. And while the SEC is great as they have been and as great as that conference is, when you put them in the playoffs and you got to earn your way to the championship, great. Now, when they did take, say, LSU and Alabama a few years ago and they selected them to be in the national championship, had a problem with that. But if those two teams had went through a 2 or 3 playoff bracket and they played themselves back to each other, they don't have a problem at all with 2 teams from the same conference playing for a championship. But to select 2 teams, that is problematic. And that is the beauty of the playoffs. Line them up and let them go. Now, what I do not agree with is putting teams from the same area in the same bracket. Right here in Florida in high school, they really bad about that. And what they do, they listen to those whiny-ass coaches who don't want to travel and don't want to go very far because they just feel entitled. But there's no entitlements in the state playoffs. If you make it and you go wherever the brackets send you. Well, what they were doing, they stopped years ago from taking just the district champion and started taking the runner-ups. Now, it's different here in Florida than, say, Georgia. Georgia has bigger regions. They have real big regions, and they take the top 4 teams out of that region in the playoffs. Well, if you take that same region and broke it up into districts, that's the same kind of setup that they have in Florida. So you still have regions, but the regions aren't played. You have to play everybody in your region in Georgia. In Florida, you no longer have to play everybody in your district. You can play everybody in their mama, and you're going to make the playoffs on seedings. So again, it's appeasing little Johnny again. You can make the playoffs. So don't worry about it if you don't want to play that tough school that's next door to you and they're in your district. You don't have to play them, little Johnny. Go over here and play the weak sisters of the poor, and if you're good enough and your record looks good enough, then we'll let you go to the state playoffs. Well, they allow them to do that, and when they get to the playoffs, now they want to make other concessions. So to make a long story short, they ended up where instead of having the loser of the district go in one way and you go in the other way, kind of like what they do in Georgia, they take those first 4 seeds of the region and send them all in 4 different directions. And oftentimes they are rematches. But it's not a rematch until you get at least to the semifinals. And that makes a difference. But no, in Florida, if I play you in my district and I beat you, I may have to see you in the second round because that's the way they set the brackets up. Nobody wants to go too far, but at the same time, everybody will say or wants to be the best. Well, if you're the best, it don't make no difference which way you go. And I think that's just the way it should be. But I kind of lost my train of thought there. But I think that the playoffs are going to be great for college football. And where you get seeded oftentimes might look like a curse, but it actually works in your favor. Certainly worked in Ohio State's favor because when they called Oregon had been sitting around a while, and when they came back the same way they started the season. It took them 2.5 games to get started, and they started rolling, and they ran through everybody. They should have actually lost those first 2 games, but they were able to survive. But that offense, once they lost that momentum, they got that bye. They came back and they had to jump right into the fire against Ohio State. By the time they got their legs together, they were down by 30 points. Too late then. I put that on the coach. That's his fault. That's the coach's fault for not having them prepared to play. But still, you have to be consistent with what you're doing, and you have to be ready to play no matter who it is. Just what happened with Oregon, it was Ohio State. And Ohio State rolled that into the championship game. Notre Dame called Indiana. That allowed them to get off to a good start. They had... that was a matchup advantage for Notre Dame. Now, could Indiana have played with them? Yeah, they could have made a better showing than what they did, but Notre Dame was on a little bit of a roll then, and it was just a bad night to play against them. So who you play often makes the difference. So whatever direction you go in, you could still find yourself, even if you got a bad draw in your mind, you can still find yourself into that national championship game. But having said all that, I don't think Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame, none of these teams that you saw, everybody's talking about Texas. Well, we're going to find out about Texas right away. Everybody's talking about this Arch Manning guy. He showed me nothing last year, but everybody talking about how great he is and what difference he's going to make now that Ewers is gone. Well, maybe he will. Well, we're going to find out right away because he's going back to, they're going into Ohio State. First game of the season. They went to Michigan last year and ran them off, but they ain't going to run off Ohio State like they did Michigan. It's going to be a completely different game. And whatever flaws this guy has, we're going to see it. Because I didn't know this until yesterday. That guy that used to coach with Belichick in New England, he's the defensive coordinator. Danny, what's his name, Patricia? He's the defensive coordinator. So if this guy Manning can come up with the kind of games that I know Patricia is going to play with him, then we'll see just how good this guy is. But I'm not expecting nothing great. Everybody else is. But I want to see what the excuse is if he doesn't play well. So I'm going to be tuning in Saturday at 12 o'clock. But that's going to be a good one. But I bring up Texas because they're a lightning rod in the SEC. A lot of the teams are complaining about their recruiting practices in that league. And I think some of them probably wish they'd be gone. But they ain't going nowhere. You wanted this super conference, and this is what you have to deal with, more competition. What they want in the SEC is the way things have always been. And because they want things the way they've always been, they don't take too kindly to outsiders. That's no different from the regular society down in southern cities and situations. But what I'm saying to you is this. Texas is still probably the best team in my mind in that SEC. And because they're still the best, I think they're going to run through the SEC again. And the SEC is going to have to step up because Texas, they got that money behind them, and they can pretty much do what they want to do. And like I say, a lot of people aren't too kind to them, but at the same time, it's going to be for some tough environments and that they're going to have to play in front of. And if Arch Manning is as good as they say he is, then he's going to have to earn it this year and show us. And if he does earn it, then he probably will win the Heisman Trophy. But I think Texas, in the end, is going to win the SEC. Georgia's declining, I think. Florida, they seem to be on the uptick, but they got a brutal schedule. And just like most other teams, one day Lane Kiffin's actually going to have a defense good enough to get him through because you know he's going to find another quarterback somewhere. So SEC is going to be brutal. Big Ten is going to be brutal. But I think this time Texas is going to have to carry that flag for the SEC. That's the only way they're going to get an opportunity to win that championship. And if they truly are the best, then any SEC team that comes through that gauntlet should be able to play deep into the playoffs. But the many years that go by that they don't, it starts to take away from the facade of the SEC. And it still goes back to what I've been saying for years. All these conferences are set up the same. You got 2 or 3 teams at the top, you got 2 or 3 teams at the bottom, and the rest are right in the middle. Put them all in the same bag, shake them up. That's how you get Ohio State as a national championship. But days of yore, they would have selected an SEC team and somebody else, and they wouldn't play for a championship. And that's just the way it is. So I'm glad for these playoffs, and this is what it is. So I ask you guys in the chat, who you like, man? Where the likes at, Coach? I don't know, man. I did something wrong with this poll today. It switched up on me. Yeah, they always have a squad. Normally I have more people on here responding. They switched up on me, so I'm not worried about it. I got to get off anyway. I'm running kind of a little behind again. When you're trying to combine 2 or 3 things at the same time, you get short on time real quick, and that's what's happening in my case. But anybody that's on here, I appreciate you. Hope you like and subscribe. If there's some breaking news, of course, I'll be back on later today. But I just wanted to come on and get a good start to the college football season. And we only got 1 game today. I think we got 2 tomorrow. And then the vast majority is going to tee it up on Saturday with the big one at 12 noon when Texas goes into Ohio State. And I would guess that, no, I take that back. I was about to say that they probably never been to Austin before, but I remember when Mack Brown was there, they did have that 2-year series, so I think they did go to Ohio State then. It's always good to see big schools playing each other that normally wouldn't see each other until a bowl game, get it on. and I think it's great. And even more so than that, I love it when a team like Texas can go into Michigan and blow them out. That's great. I love it because they're paying the crowd and people be all shocked and, oh man, is this really happening? Man, it's a damn game. I think all that is scripted. I think the cameraman get those people to get those shocked look on their faces. It's like it's the end of the world, like they couldn't believe that their team was lost. Well, somebody had to win, and because somebody had to win, you're subject to lose. So I think it's kind of comical when you see all those shocked faces. You sit there with the pom-poms on their head. Then you look at their friends. Did we really lose? Yeah, I think you lost. Go on and buy a ticket for next game, and maybe next time you'll win. But this one, you lost. Shake their hands and move on. But keep in mind, there's always a better tomorrow, so don't worry about losing one game. It's no big deal, especially now that most teams, if you play a tough enough schedule and you got 1 or 2 losses, you're probably going to end up in the playoffs. But don't start out 0-2, 0-3. You're going to be in bad shape. You would have been like the Cowboys. Still might be like the Cowboys. You know, see, they finally signed Michael Parsons. They could have did that shit 3 weeks ago. He just drags stuff out, man. It's time for Jerry to sit down somewhere. But he does the way he wants to do it. So his team let him do what he want to do. But you're going to have to take that 0-2, 0-3 start because he keeps doing the things that he has always done. And ever since he run off Jimmy Johnson, it's been downhill for the Cowboys. And it's going to keep on going downhill. So, but I want to get off onto that. I got to get up out of here, man. But again, I appreciate you guys for checking me out, man. But I just want to celebrate the start of college football season. And you're right, Gillespie, they couldn't throw a pass last year. Hope they're supposed to have this new quarterback that can throw the ball. But, you know, all these quarterbacks are run like a Jalen Milroe. They can throw the ball a little bit, but run the ball a lot. You got to stop them from running the football. And if you make them stand in that pocket, then you see what kind of quarterback they really are. And that's the key, stopping the run, getting to that point. So we'll see if they can get to that. But like I said, if there's some breaking news, I'll come back on later on today. If not, I catch you guys on the other side. But I got to get up out of here, man. It's time to go to work. So have a great day. I'm out. All right, check this poll. Well, I closed the poll out already. So wherever you are, take it easy. And got another week before